Welcome, students of theology and film. My name is Matthew Anderson. I'm the instructor for the course and a professor in the Department of Theological Studies at Concordia University in Montreal. I want to give you a short pre-watch lecture on The Truman Show, and a fascinating show full of problems, full of all kinds of interesting images, and amazingly prescient, which means it foresaw a lot of things that were about to happen later on in our lives, things that we're living out now. So The Truman Show, I've titled it Out of Eden, which tells you something about the theological significance, I think, is happening in this film. So a few questions to ask yourself after you've finished watching the movie. I'd like you to think, or going into the movie, I'd like you to ask yourself, is it going to be a parable about the Enlightenment, the historical period of the Enlightenment? Is it a warning against corporatization? Is it a story about humanity leaving the mythical Garden of Eden? Is it a fable about reality and the afterlife? Is it a theological treatment on free will? There's a very good argument to be made that it's about free will. Is it maybe all of the above? So think about these things. These are all different kinds of options, and I'd like you to think about what you think it is. Which one of these most applies to it, perhaps, after you finish watching it? A button sticker, how will it end? Truman Burbank, just to let you know beforehand, Truman Burbank is the first baby ever adopted by a corporation. Again, remember, this movie is 1998. It's the ultimate reality TV show. It's on air continuously for 30 years. That is The Truman Show, the fictional show. And we're going to talk later about Tom Trott's article, How the Truman Show Warned Us About Social Media Before It Was Even Invented. The Truman Show portrays itself as having the largest set in history, with a false moon and 5,000 cameras recording Truman's every move. And it's a whole world set up for his comfort, protection, and the control of his every movement, which is why I've been asking about free will. Is this maybe a movie about free will? All right. So plot lines, 3 questions. So there are 3 questions that come up in many of the movies. And so I would like you to think about these 3 questions, which are very specific and explicit here in The Truman Show, but come up again and again and again in the movies that we'll be watching. You'll see that the image that I chose for this slide is not from The Truman Show, but from another movie. I hope you know which one it is. But moments where Truman, in this case, explicitly or implicitly asks these 3 questions. So think about these 3 questions and learn them, please. Who am I? Which is the personal existential question. This happens in movies again and again and again. Who am I? So the Hobbit, at the very beginning, am I a hobbit or am I an adventurer? Do I want to stay at home or do I want to go out? In all kinds of movies, and I'm sure you'll think of some, the existential question is often the beginning. There's an existential question asked, and then you move out from that. Second question, who are you? The question of the transcendent, the meaning of life. If I am who I am, then what kind of a life am I living in, and what does that mean? And should I change? Should there be some action? Which brings us to the third question, which is, what should I do next? The question of action, or in theological terms, of ethics. What should I do next? So in terms of, say, these 3 questions and the Good Place, the TV show, The Good Place. Who am I? I'm dead. Who are you? You are the architect. What should I do next? How do I behave thinking that I'm a phony in The Good Place? All right, some basic facts about this movie, about The Truman Show. Director Peter Weir, came out in 1998, before the glut of reality TV, and certainly before there was a reality TV star who became the president of the United States. Jim Carrey stars as Truman Burbank, Laura Linney, Ed Harris, Noah Emmerich, Natasha McElhone. Shot on location in Seaside, Florida, which is a planned community on the Florida Panhandle. And it was a box office success. What else about it? Characters, Truman Burbank. Now listen to that name, Truman Burbank. Meryl Burbank, Angela, and Marlon is Truman's best friend. And the architect, in this case, of his world is Christoph. There's an interesting name there. These people were giving all kinds of clues to us as a theology and film class. Now, again, we talked about who am I? Who are you? What do I do next? As a sort of a 3-stage paradigm of questions people ask themselves or could be asked about a movie. Look for these 4 stages in a story as well. Now, this is just my own stuff, but it's hardly original to me, but this is sort of a distillation that I've thought of. So in many, many movies that we're going to watch, you have a call or a conversion of some sort. You have a temptation to stray away from the path. You often have a sacrifice of some sort and then a redemption. And of course, these are this four-part narrative structure. We can absolutely see it, for instance, in the gospel stories of Jesus, where you have a call or the disciples, a call or a conversion. You have a temptation to do something else, literal temptation in the case of Jesus, a sacrifice in the case of Jesus on the cross, and a redemption. And which came first? Are these sort of universal human paradigms of story, of narrative, or has Western narrative structure taken on this structure? We'll see this again and again. So do remember these four: call, conversion, temptation, sacrifice, redemption. Not all stories go along with this, but boy, an awful lot of Hollywood movies do. An awful lot of movies, period. Look also for elements of a typical hero story in The Truman Show, seeking true love, going against all odds, entre guillemets, in quotation marks, and a battle against his creator, which brings us to another paradigm of Western narrative, which are the Greeks and the Odyssey. So just like Odysseus fought against the gods and persevered somehow, so will Truman. Truman, true human, Truman, feels like a cog in a big machine, suspects there's more to life than what we see, distrusts what the world says is real, battles his own fears, and seeks authenticity. Now, unfortunately, these are also the ingredients of conspiracy theory people. And so there's a way in which this movie buys into or helps promote that way of seeing the world as well, sadly. Some specific biblical allusions or references in The Truman Show. His escape sailboat is called the Santa Maria, or the Mary. There is an ID on the boat of 139, which very definitely, in my mind, refers to Psalm 139. Even at the far edges of the sea, your right hand shall hold me fast. The final storm he survives is a baptism, and the creator's name is Christoph, who says in the final scene, I am the creator, and then he pauses, of a TV show. I mean, they're trying to really give us all of the theology all at once in this show. There's an awful lot of theological significance. And let's talk about some of those as you get ready to watch them. There's predestination. Truman will say, you'll hear this, I'm blocked at every turn, beautifully synchronized, don't you think? Free will. Let's be spontaneous, he says. I want to be spontaneous in a situation where he is never allowed to be spontaneous. Community. All the people around Truman are catfish, are actors, and product placement. They're also influencers. Revelation. Should we believe in something that seems unbelievable just because we're personally convinced it's right? Love. Does it mean controlling another person or allowing them to be free? So when Christoph loves Truman, does he really love Truman? The nature of reality. There's no such thing as an unconstructed reality. We may not be able to see the whole picture. And certainly in theological terms, many religious texts talk about realities beyond what we can see, hear, taste, touch, and smell. And so this idea that there is another reality that influences us is also very much a part of religious paradigms and religious literature. Identity. Are we really who society says we are? The search for authenticity. And finally, call. Being convinced that God or a God or the transcendent has something in mind as a purpose for our lives. Existential questions. How do we construct reality in our lives? How is reality constructed for us by others, by our parents and communities and so on? Truman faces this as well. These are existential questions of meaning, which are, in my mind, theological questions. What existential questions does this movie raise for those of us who do not live inside a TV show? And so some memorable quotes. A lot of world for one man, Truman. You sure you're not fooling yourself? That's a catfish. That's somebody who's trying to subvert him. Do you ever think about that, Marlon, that your whole life is building towards something? And Marlon, his best friend, answers, no. This is a TV show full of pain and love, laughter and sadness, and ultimately redemption. It's a bit prescient again, because there will be redemption, but not the way that they think. Christoph says, nothing you see is fake. It's merely controlled. And Truman, on seeing the pin on a fellow actor, how's it going to end, says, I like that pin. I've been wondering that myself, which we all certainly, isn't that what we existentially ask about our lives? I wonder how it's all going to end. How the Truman Show warned us about social media before it was even invented. Tom Trott wrote an article in 2018, so only a few years ago, so 20 years after the Truman Show came out, called Yes, how the Truman Show warned us about social media before it was even invented. And what I'd like you to do is take a look at the factors that he lists that the movie was sort of bang on about in terms of predictions: catfish, influencer, profiling, escape, and ignorance. And you'll be reading this very short online piece as well. But take a look at the movie and see what you think about who's the catfish, who's the influencer, or who are the influencers, profiling, and what happens in terms of escape and ignorance. That's it. I hope you enjoy the movie. It's a really fun movie and kind of hits you over the head with symbolism, but it's good. To think about how it might be the title I gave, The Escape from Eden, and what you think of that. Talk to you next time. Thanks for now.